Okay, we're going to get started here. Thank you very much for coming after lunch, and we're going to do our best to keep everybody awake. My name is Don Campbell, and with me is Rohit Puri, my colleague from, we're both technical evangelists with Microsoft for Office Live. So we work with our partners and customers on Office Live to build solutions on the platform. And do not fear, we have only a few slides. We're going to spend most of the time doing a demo and showing you the Office Live service. We're going to get into some code and show you all about the kinds of things you can do to extend Office Live as a developer. How many people in the audience are design-focused, like designer-type people? Okay. And what about developers? Okay, and then any of you used Windows, SharePoint, any of the SharePoint products before? Okay, good. Yeah, so that helps us just kind of know who we're talking to here. And if you are already familiar with SharePoint, you're going to see some familiar things here. If not, we'll definitely cover that from both sides. So first, what we'd like to do is start off with what Office Live is. A lot of people think Office Live is online versions of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Sorry to disappoint you, that's not what we're talking about today. Actually, it's kind of more compelling than that. Office Live is really a set of web-based services for small businesses to help them grow and manage their business online. And there's two key aspects of Office Live. The first is a public-facing website, so they get a free domain name, and it allows a small business to establish a professional-looking presence on the web. And we give them tools to customize that website and go off and do different things with it. And there's also a private site. This private site allows the businesses to manage their business online, and it gives them email, gives them calendaring, and a set of unique business applications that are unique to Office Live. And what's kind of interesting about that is they can go off and they don't need an IT department, right, to get started. And so there's a lot of small businesses out there that don't want to host their own Exchange server and hire an IT person even part-time. They can just have it all handled for them with Office Live. So Office Live, there are 3 levels of subscription to Office Live. It starts off with a free basics version. Am I in the way for you guys of the presentation? Okay. And then there's an Essentials and a Premium, and each of these scale up. Even the highest end service is still very reasonably priced. It's $40 a month. And it offers a lot of capabilities that we're going to show you today in a demo. In particular, these unique business applications. And from a developer standpoint, you can go in and we're going to show you how you can create your own business applications inside of Office Live, how you can customize and extend the platform. So that's really what the focus is today, is to say, hey, if I'm a developer and I'm thinking about doing some new web application, why would I consider Office Live, and what kind of things can I do with it? So really there are 3 main parts to Office Live. One is 3 main points to the presentation today, and one is that we've got a lot of momentum. So Office Live is succeeding in the marketplace already. We've only launched last fall, and we have over 400,000 customers, and that customer base is growing very rapidly. And our customers are essentially small businesses between 2 and 25 people. That's pretty much the demographic of the customers we have today. And then it represents a big opportunity, too, for developers, because we provide a really interesting platform to build on, and we also have a marketplace where you can go and post your solutions and have access to that customer base. And that small, medium business application marketplace is something that everybody's after today. And Office Live is a really interesting way to go to, allow your solution offering or your services offering to make it available to our customers. And finally, it's a really interesting platform, and we're going to show you that. We're going to show you the ways that you can extend it, web services with HTML and JavaScript, with a lot of different capabilities, and even client-side applications, how you can tie into Office Live. This is our Office Live at a glance slide, and it really is intended to say, from a developer's point of view, what is Office Live? What are the touch points that I can go after and customize and extend within Office Live? And we're going to spend more time showing you this instead of just on the slide, but I just wanted to point out that it really starts off on Office Live is based on Windows SharePoint Services v3. So as a result, we get all of the foundation services that come with Windows SharePoint Service, things like the storage model, the security, the site model and topology, and even the APIs. And that's all part of Office Live. Now, that's totally transparent to the customer, but as a developer, if you've got experience, and we've got several partners that have Windows SharePoint services and SharePoint applications already, they're just moving them over to Office Live, and it gives them a whole other set of customers that they can talk to. So that's kind of an exciting space. And then if you're a new developer, we can abstract some of that away. Essentially, the lists and libraries is the data model. So if you're thinking about what kind of applications can I develop, if you're familiar with Windows SharePoint Services, great. If you're not, we're going to show you what this looks like. I can create lists, basically like tables, or records in a database, and I can customize what those fields look like, programmatically access and extend those. We also have the notion of libraries for allowing document management and collaboration. We're going to show you some examples of that too. There's also the ability to customize workflows in this site and add business logic, and to do this in a real straightforward way. And then there's this set of business applications that I've been mentioning. And these business applications are unique to Office Live. The Office Live product team built them on top of this model, and they do things like business contact management, sales management, project management, time management, and a bunch of things, and we'll show you those. And then you can go, if you look in the green area, that's where you can now customize. You can extend these business applications or create your own. And what we're going to do in the demo is show you, Rohit's going to show you how we've created one for a particular business. And you can also customize aspects of the public site, and we provide some interesting new tools that are browser-based called the Site Designer and Page Editor that allow you to quickly modify the templates and look and feel of the public site. So enough slides. Let's get into the demo. We've built a demo based on a real business, a bed and breakfast, that shows, it's kind of like a tour of all the different kind of things I can do in Office Live. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Rohit, and he's going to take you through the demo and show you, think about it from a developer's perspective, the kinds of interesting things you can do to sort of add on to this business as we go. Rohit?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. So today I'd like to walk you through a demo of a solution we built for a real business on Office Live. So it was a bed and breakfast inn, and we built a solution for them to manage their business data, business rules, and extend Office Live and build a solution on Office Live. So what we'll show today is to customize a public site, work with a private site, share data between the two sites, create workflows for business logic, and integrate with a rich client application. So you can talk to the Office Live data using web services. So we'll see how we can do that. First, you authenticate yourself with Live ID, and then talk the data. So we'll take a look at all that. So before we get in that, as I show the demo, I'd like you to think about solutions that you can build on Office Live with the skill set that you have or integrate with Office Live. So developer extensible features. There are 3 key buckets in which you can extend Office Live. One is the business applications that Don talked about. You can create your own. You can create Web 2.0 type mashups to integrate data and show a richer view of data. And you can build client applications with Windows Presentation Framework or any client application and talk to the Office Live data using web services, one to authenticate, and then to get the data in Office Live. So we'll take a look at all this in the demo today. So let's get to the demo. And okay. So before I get into the developer features and how we can extend it, let me give you a preview of what Office Live is and what it provides and what you can do with it. So here's a site that we built for the Northwind Inn. It's a public-facing site. Like any other site, it's got some text content about the inn, some pictures, and a way for customers to contact them from a contact us form. And on top, you see these tabs which correspond to different pages on this public-facing site. Now in Office Live, like Don said, with the public-facing site, you also get a private-facing site. So let's go and take a look at that, because that's where we will do development on Office Live. So we go to Office Live. Here you see the 3 offerings Don had just talked about. I go and sign in. It prompts me for the Live ID credentials. And once I sign in, it brings me to this page, which is my private site for my site. And on the left, you see a navigation bar, which tells you what all content is in this private site. First, let's go and see how we created the public-facing site. If you go to the website tab, that lists all the ASPX pages on the site which my public-facing site was made up. You saw all those tabs on top. And if you come here, you see home and contact us and all that. So quickly, let me show you how easily one person can put a site together, just a basic site. You click Edit, and it brings up a tool with 2 tabs, a page editor and a site designer. So the page editor is something that you would use to manage the content on your site, so the text, images, or HTML. For example, If I want to put custom HTML on this page under Contact Us, for our scenario, we have a partner called RingCentral who provides the functionality of being able to call someone from the web. It'll be good for our in if people can come in here and then just call us directly as opposed to going to a phone, taking down a number and all that. So to do that, I come and select that area, and I put an HTML module there. And I paste in the HTML given to me by RingCentral, which is not custom to Office Live. It can be put on any ASPX page. So I just put it here, and I hit OK. And you'll see the RingCentral icon just shows up there on my site. So I come here and save. And if I go back to my public-facing site, and if you refresh, you'll see the RingCentral icon shows up on the public-facing site. So now my customers can come here, click this, it'll bring up a dialog, and call me for a reservation directly. So that's the way you can modify content on your site. Let's go back to the tool and look at the other tab, which is Site Designer. This allows you to change the look and feel of your site, or how the site looks like, color, themes, and all that. So I could quickly come here and say I want to change the style of my site, and it shows me a preview of what my site will look like. I can change the navigation, I can change the colors, and preview how my site will look. And once I hit save, it is immediately reflected on my public-facing site. So this is a tool to get a basic site up and running quickly. Let's go back to our private site. And now that we've seen what Office Live can do for a small business, we'll get into the developer scenarios of what we as a developer can build as a solution for Office Live. So going back to the tab here, on the left navbar, you'll see an entry here called Business Application. So like Don mentioned, there are business applications you get out of the box. And they are Business Contact Manager, Time Manager, and Project Manager. Before we get in that, what is a business application? So a business application basically is a collection of custom lists and libraries that you create to store data relevant to that business application. So for example, in Business Contact Manager, if you go here, the first thing you see is a dashboard, which is like a SharePoint web part page. And all this does is surfaces the data which is in the lists in this application that store the data. And on the top, you see tabs here, each of which corresponds to a custom list created to store data for this application.
Can everybody see this screen, or is it too small? Can you read that? It's OK? All right, good. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So like I said, the top tabs correspond to a list in this Contact Manager application which store the data. So if you look at contacts, you can see all the contacts that our in needs to use. And here, because it's built on SharePoint, you get this rich integration with the Office clients. If I, as an in manager, want to see my contacts and not have to go into Office Live, I can come here and say connect to Outlook, and easily I can see those contacts in Outlook on a day-to-day basis without going to Office Live. Getting back to our private site, now we saw what Office Live gives you out of the box. For a developer, let's look at the first developer opportunity, which is creating custom business applications. So we saw default business applications here, Time Manager, Project Manager. How would you create a business application? For the Northwind In scenario that we have, we created an application called In Manager. Let's take a look at that. So like the Context Manager, this also has a dashboard. And in this case, it surfaces data which is relevant to this in. And it shows the reservations that are in our in at this time. And like the Contact Manager, on top you see these tabs. And these correspond to the custom lists we created to store data relevant to this business. Let's take a look at this application further. So we have a list here called Vacation Packages. This is a custom list with an RTF field here that shows a description of the packages that we have from month to month. So I, as an application developer, go ahead and build this application, give it to the in, and say, now you can use this to store your data for your in. Now they come in here and enter the data which says, here are the specials that we have from month to month. The one key thing that Office Live provides is the data sharing between this private site and the public-facing site. So once the data is in the list, I can easily share this to the public-facing site. And here's how. So the first thing I need to do is tell Office Live that I want to share this data with the public-facing site. So I have a view called All Packages, and I say I want to display this data on my website. Once I have checked this property, it will show up available on my public-facing site. So now I go to back to my web design tools under website. I go to edit under home. That'll bring up those two tools again. And like I said, I use page editor to put content on my page. So I'm back in page editor. I go to the vacation packages page that I have, and I want to show that data here. So I'll delete this. So I come here and I say I want to show the package deals here. I can insert a module, which is a display data module, which then is aware of all the views that I've shared in my private site. So in this case, it shows me I have all packages from that list shared. I can say I want to show that data as a repeated form, hit end, and hit OK. And once I do that, immediately now that data shows up on a public-facing site. And once I save this, it will be available for my customers to go take a look at. The advantage here is we as developers can focus on building the infrastructure for the business application with lists and libraries and not worry about the data manipulation. If the business wants to change or update the data, they can go and handle that on themselves by logging onto Office Live. Let's get back to our private side and delve into this a little more. So we go back to the business applications and in Manager. So in this business application, apart from creating lists and libraries that store the data, we also implemented business logic or business rules for this data. So we built a reservation request system for this in using the workflow feature in Office Live, and I'll demonstrate how we did that. So we have a list here called reservation request. This is another custom list which we bound to the public-facing site. So here are the reservation requests that have come in. Now, if you go to the public-facing site and look at reservation request, here is the form that connects to that list in the internal site. Let's try this out and see how we can demonstrate this. So Don comes to the public-facing site and says, I like this bed and breakfast and I want to go visit it. He fills in all the information and hits OK. Now, since this form is linked to that list in the internal site, if we go back to our private site and refresh this, we will see that Don's request comes in here. Now, the business rule that we applied to this data was when a reservation request comes in and I approve it, it's no longer a request, and it should move to the confirmed reservations list. So we want to remove it from here and move it to the confirmed reservations list. So for that, we use the workflow feature, and we'll see how we create a workflow in a minute, but let's see more about this for now. So I, as a reception or in manager, come here and see the request from Don. I hit edit and say, oh, I have a room for Don, so I'm going to approve it and give him a room, say room 110, and I hit OK. Once I have approved it, our workflow kicks in, and then you will see the item moves out from here. That entry is gone, and if you go to the confirmed reservations table, you'll see that Don's entry is here in confirmed reservations. That was done using workflow. Now, let's implement a business rule here and see how easy it is to implement one. So when we get a confirmed reservation, we also have a reservation calendar. So we want to mark it in our reservation calendar to show the traffic in our inn on that day or month. So let's go ahead and now create a business rule on the reservations list. For this, we use SharePoint Designer. So SharePoint Designer is what we use to create workflows in Office Live. So I log on, open Office, SharePoint Designer, and I'll connect to my business application in Manager. And it's connecting. Now,
so while Rohit is bringing this up, I just wanted to point out that, well, it's up already, but SharePoint Designer is a tool that's new in Office 2007 that's specifically designed to customize SharePoint sites. So those of you that are using WSS or SharePoint are maybe familiar with it. But because Office Live is based on Windows SharePoint services, then you can also use SharePoint Designer to do some pretty cool customizations, and that's what Rohit's going to show you here.
So like Don mentioned, once you use SharePoint Designer and open a site, you'll see the same structure that you see when you open a SharePoint site. So on the left here, you see all the data in that application that we've built. And under the lists node, you'll see all the lists that we created, the custom list that we created for this application. So now we want to create a workflow. We already see an existing workflow called reservation approval. That was what had fired and ran when we moved the item from reservation request to reservations. We want to create a new workflow. For that, we say new SharePoint content. And that brings up a wizard for us to define the workflow, the conditions, the actions, and all that. So I select workflow, blank workflow, and then it gives me all the properties I need to fill. The first screen says the name. So we'll say copy to calendar. The list that we bind it to is reservations. And here are three options as to when you want that action to happen or the business rule to take place. The first one is allow someone to manually start the workflow, or you want it to happen whenever a new item is created or when an item is changed. So you can pick any of these options based on what your business rule is. In our case, we want to happen every time a new reservation has been confirmed. But we'll also check the start manually option so we can try it out now when we create it. So the next step is to define the workflow. And there are two key attributes of the workflow. One is the condition when you want that action to happen. I mean, what should be the trigger for that action? And for example, when we created the workflow for the reservation approval, which copied the item from reservation request to reservations, we used a field on that list called approved. If you notice, when I approved that request, I checked the approved checkbox to true. So the workflow condition there was, in the current item, when the approved field is set to true, start the workflow. So that was the condition. And the conditions can be compare a field in the list or any data source. And then you have the action. What do you want to do when that condition is satisfied? You can create a list item, you can send an email, check out an item, assign a task to someone, and if you go to more actions, there are a lot more things you can do. So one thing that I want to do here in my workflow is create a list item in the reservation calendar. So I come here and pick the list that I want, which is the reservation calendar. Once I pick that, it tells me what fields I need to provide or map with the current item to be able to create the new item. So I check title, hit modify, and then from the current item, I want the title to be a field called data summary, which is the summary of the reservation. And I hit OK. Then I want the start time to be check-in date. So I come back again from current item, and I say I want check-in date. Hit OK. Then we have end time, which is checkout date. Similarly, I come here and checkout date. So now I have defined what the values for the new item in the calendar will be from the existing item. I hit OK, and I have defined the action. Now, if you see here, it says step 1. So one thing I like to point out is you can have multiple steps in your workflow, multiple conditions and actions, depending like an if-then statement. If this field is this, then do this, otherwise do this, and all that. So once I've defined this, I can go ahead and say finish. And now it'll bind this workflow to my reservation list and put it up on Office Live. So once I have done this, I can go back to the Office Live site, and we'll try it. So if you refresh this list now, the reservation list, you'll see under the edit menu for the items in this list, there's an option called workflows. And you'll see the workflow we just created, copy to calendar. Let's start it manually to see if it works and does what we asked it to do. So we hit start, the workflow starts, and then finishes and does the action we had specified. So if you come to the extreme right here, you'll see copy to calendar completed. And let's go and verify. If we go to the calendar, you'll see there's Don Campbell's reservation marked in our calendar. So we created a business rule on the business data that we put up on our custom business application. Here again, you can see the rich integration with the Office clients, like we saw with the Contacts Manager. So I, as an in manager, don't want to go to Office Live to see the calendar of my in. I can come here and say, connect to Outlook, and then you'll see that my in-manager calendar and my regular Outlook calendar are shown side by side, and they are in sync. It's a two-way sync. I can superimpose them or see them side by side in Outlook without having to go to Office Live. So that was creating a custom business application and rules using workflows in Office Live. Now let's take a look at the second developer scenario that we talked about. So there were 3 tabs: business applications, web mashups, and then client-side applications. So we looked at how we can create a business application with lists and libraries and put business rules using workflow. Let's take a look at the Web 2.0 mashups. On the right, you see business applications. So you have Contacts Manager and In Manager. And in our case, Contacts Manager stores our customers, and In Manager is our business data. So for example, if I want to show my customers in my business application here with Virtual Earth. So this was a sample built by the product team. And if you come here and click this link, it'll show you a sample of a mashup that you can create to show data from a different business application in yours. So on the right side, you see all the contacts in our business contact manager. And on the left, you see Virtual Earth. So I can come here and select the ones that I want to see, zoom out, see an aerial view. and I can see a richer mashup of the data in a different business application in my business application. So that was the second developer scenario for Office Live. Now, let's get back to our private site. Sorry. And look at the final piece of extending Office Live, which is we have the data here and the business rules and the mashups inside Office Live, but now I want to talk to it from outside Office Live. And the advantage is the data is sitting on the cloud and it's available anywhere from wherever you go. And they have web services to access the data also. So the last part is talking to this data using web services. In our example here, on the reservations list, we'll try and modify this data. So for our requirement, the inn already had a point of sale application which they wanted to integrate with Office Live. So they wanted their point of sale application to update the data sitting in this application. So let's take a look at that. So we come back here and we start our point of sale application. So here's a point of sale application built on WPFE. I don't know the resolution. Okay, that should be okay. So here's a point of sale application that the inn has, which they use on a day-to-day basis. So the receptionist uses this to make reservations, see existing reservations, check in people, and check out people. So the way we integrate a client application with Office Live is basically two steps. One is to authenticate yourself using the Live ID client, which is using a web service. And the second is use the lists web service or web services in Office Live to get the data that you want to get at. So in this application, we created a sign-in button, which basically will log on or prompt you to give your credentials for Windows Live. Once you sign in, it's signing you in, and then it knows who you are, and then you can manage and play with the data that is on Office Live. So once you're signed in, as a receptionist, I can come here and see, okay, I want to create a new reservation, so I can pick the check-in date, check-out date. Can I change the resolution quickly? So they can see it correctly to what I had earlier.
Okay.
It's better. See the application now, right? Okay. A little skewed, but you can see all the functionality. So I can select the dates, the check-in date, the checkout date, fill this form up. If it's a touch pay, and so I can just come and bring up a touchscreen information here, fill the information, and make a reservation. The next thing I can see is existing reservations. So you see here, we have a reservation that Dawn had sent in from the web, which is coming from Office Live. Since we authenticated ourselves, now we can see the data in Office Live using web services. So I'm a receptionist looking at this tool, and Dawn walks in saying, I had a reservation, now I want to check in and have my vacation. So I see Dawn's reservation here. I see Dawn's information. He has a room 110, and I say check him in. Once I click check in, it uses the web services to update the website, as well as get the new data, so now Dawn is out of the existing reservations table here. So if you go back to reservations, and if you refresh this, the status will change from not arrived to now checked in. So we updated the data in Office Live using web services and authenticating with Live ID. Next, we have this tab here, which shows the data in our rooms. And we see 101, 105, and 110 are being used. Rests are available. Now, Don has finished his vacation. He comes up to the desk and says, I want to check out. I again come to this tool and see 110, and I see Don's bill so far. I see he's been using the mini bar a lot and making phone calls. And then his total is here. Then I make sure everything is okay, and I say, I charge his credit card and say check out. Once I hit check out, the room again will become available in this tool here. And then if you go back to the site and you refresh it, you'll see the status change from checked in to checked out. The other thing the Windows Presentation Framework client-side tool did was we have a list here called bills. So it uploaded a bill for Dan as well in the document library. So if you come here and click this, you'll see the bill for Dawn. So all this using web services to talk to the Office Live data and authenticating using Live ID. So let me just summarize what we just saw. We saw the 3 developer opportunities for Office Live. One is building custom applications using lists and libraries in Office Live. The other was creating Web 2.0 type mashups inside Office Live, which talk to business applications that you have. And lastly, we saw how we can build a rich client application to talk to the data in Office Live and interact with it using the Windows Live ID. So before we get further, I'd like to see, do you have any questions so far? Any questions? Go ahead.
You were saying that you have this large network of these clients. Does Office Live provide any sort of marketplace for the clients that are is this a one-on-one interaction that you would have with the existing user of Office Live, or is there somewhere that you could go and essentially publish a service that you could have?
Yeah, so the question was, is there a marketplace for these kind of applications? And yeah, that's absolutely an essential part of what we're doing. So for example, we have partners that are building something like this, right, where they would build maybe a reservation system for a bed and breakfast, or maybe it was more generally applicable. They can list that solution in the marketplace, and it's right off the Office Live site. We'll give you the link to it at the end. And then all of these customers can go in and actually find this. So we actually share the leads directly with you, and we actually send them to your website from the marketplace. And then you handle the transaction. But the point is that you're able to actually do your listing. We have a lot of referrals that are already happening for partners today.
And in the last part of the demo, we'll show how an existing application was used inside a site.
Yeah, yeah.
On the branding part, how deep control do we have over the branding experience? So that can we customize master pages, create and introduce new page layouts? And what is the additional, above and beyond just kind of the cursory modification at the SharePoint designer level, where I'm just, or within the web-based tools, how deep can I go in terms of branding?
I think you can change the site to what you want to look at. The only thing that shows up on the site with Office Live is, if you come here, at the bottom here it says Office Live. That's the only thing. The rest is all that you want to put up there.
Yeah, so for the public site, you can totally brand that to be how you look, with the exception of that. I think you can even take that off. On the private site, there are some caveats. You can brand that. We have some partners that have done a pretty amazing job of branding the private site and the business apps themselves. And we'll actually, we've got Tara Brown from the product team who's going to come up at the end, and we'll do some more in-depth Q&A, right? But so the answer is, yes, you can do branding. There are some caveats. You don't have full control to building your, customizing the entire site, because, it's a multi-tenant environment, but you can definitely customize.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Okay, one more. Yeah, so good question. How do you write custom code in that environment? What you're going to see is we provide, there's a web part, and we'll point you to a link where we've got a short screencast that shows how to do this. But we've got a web part that we provide called a data viewer web part that allows you to quickly build and customize lists, consume RSS feeds, connect to databases, talk to web services. And so you can do some interesting customization that way, and we have some partners that are doing that. In terms of writing server-side code, you can't do that. You can write client-side JavaScript that does some interesting mashups like you saw here, which is all totally custom code. So it depends on what you do. We have a partner that has a lot of JavaScript in the side of the business applications that goes and detects the pieces that it needs and auto-installs those in the business app. So there's some interesting things you can do, but you can't write like your own server-side code. We have some limitations on that. So we'll do one more, and then we'll have some more questions at the end, too.
So how would, a natural extension to something like this would be some of the credit card processing or something of that nature. So how would an existing vendor today do that if you couldn't write server-side code, other than PayPal part?
Sure. Yeah, good question. How do you do e-commerce on this site, right? And we don't support transactions like that directly in Office Live today. That's part of our roadmap, but it's not in there now. We've got several partners that are doing some interesting things where they've created an Office Live presence with their product catalog, and then they've themed it to look just like their e-commerce site. So they've actually got an interesting new ways of capturing some people and actually allowing them to browse the catalog. But when they go to the shopping cart, it seamlessly takes them to their HTTPS server, and the customer doesn't really even see, unless they're watching the URL, they don't see it. So we have customer partners that are doing that already, but it's not directly all contained within the Office Live environment.
Can you show one of the sites?
I'm sorry?
Can you show one of the sites?
It is, if you would come see me after, I just don't remember the URL of that one. I definitely, it's a public site that you can go look at, the one that I'm referring to. But I could follow up with you later and send you the direct link to that. Unfortunately, I don't remember the URL.
Okay, now let's get back to the final part of the demo. And what I'd like to show here is how you can use an existing business application built by someone else and then extend it to the client with Live ID and web services. So for this scenario, in Manager, we decided we have a restaurant we want to manage as well. So we have a restaurant for North Winden right now as well, and we want an application for that. And I know Don had built an application called Reservation for Restaurant Manager. So I'm going to use that. And he gave me an STP file, which is a way of collecting and sharing your application information that you create in your business application.
And this is the type of thing you could post in the marketplace. So just imagine that he just downloaded this STP file from the marketplace.
So I come here, create new, and I want to create a new application. I select custom, and then I see Don's application here available, restaurant template. I say click that and hit OK. I give it a name. For simplicity, I'll say RT. And then I want to show it at the top nav bar. So I say top level and click OK. So now it's going to use the template which Don just gave me and build the dashboard with lists and libraries that he has created for a restaurant management application. So once it's created, you see the same field here. You have a dashboard, and you have the tabs on top, which are the lists to store the data regarding a restaurant. So you see a list here called orders, which shows all the order information that someone has placed at my restaurant. Now let's go ahead and try and talk to this using a WPF application. So here, I have a blank WPF application, and all that I added to it was the CS file that Don shared with me called restaurant.cs. So like I mentioned, to talk to Office Live data, there are two critical steps. One is to authenticate yourself using Live ID. That is a web service call, which is mapped here. And then there is a web service call to the list data to get the data from Office Live. And it's list.asmx, which is a SharePoint web service. So I have those references here and a class file that Don just shared with me. And if you take a look at that, he has a function in that called getAllOrders, which basically uses that web services list web service and makes a call to get list items on Office Live. He also has wrapped in the Windows Live ID calls to sign into that site. So let's go ahead and now create our client-side application. So here's our order manager. So the first thing I want to do is sign in using the Live ID. So I put a button here, and I say, sign in. I go back to my CS file, and let's bind it now. So the first thing I need is a restaurant class object. And I say,
You can just
I just do it here.
do it right in there, I think.
View. Do you know how to do it? Where is it?
Down here in options.
There you go.
Down, scroll down. It's the second from the.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Wow. Is that better? So we say new restaurant, and that application that we created was RT. So we want to open that application. And then we want to bind it to our button. So we say, this dot button, one dot. And in this, we want to just sign in. So we have a call called sign in using Live ID. So let's try this first. So we run our application. We see our button. If we hit sign in, It brings up the live ID box like our client tool had. Once you hit sign in, it goes ahead and signs you into the Office Live site. So let's go ahead and add more functionality that we want. Like we want to get the orders for on that application. So I come back to my thing, and I add another button. Call it Get Orders. And then I want a text box to display and I want a text box to display those orders. So now let's go ahead and bind this as well. So come back here and say, the button, what happened to the button? So I'm going to create my button again. I'm going to call it orders. Come back to this. Need to build it. Button 2 dot click, and in this I want to get orders. So rest dot get all orders, and let's try and run this now. So we have application running here. We click sign in. It brings up the live ID dialog. You sign in, and once you're signed in, then you can use the second call to the list to get that data. So we call get orders. Oh, we didn't put the data in the text. That'll work. So we need to say text box 1 dot text equal to, that was missing. So now we go in. So now we go and run this. We again sign in with live ID during the dialog. And once we've signed in, we again make a call to get orders, which is a list call, and now you see the orders that were there in the list on Office Live. So it's very easy to go ahead and talk to that data using web services. So that was all I had for the demo. And just to recap, the developer opportunities to extend Office Live are 3 main categories: creating business application using lists and libraries and dashboards, creating Web 2.0 mashups using JavaScript and web services, as well as creating client applications that talk to the Office Live data, which is stored on the cloud, using Office Live web services by authenticating yourself using Windows Live ID. So that's all I had, and I'll turn it over to Don.
All right, thank you, Rohit. So one of the things just to think about here is what we saw with Office Live is this sort of database in the cloud, right? So for this bed and breakfast, there is a live view of their business at any time that they can get to from client applications, whether that's Office or custom developed apps or through the web. And the point is that all this data is then stored and managed, directly in the Office Live site. So I think it was kind of a, the reason we picked that scenario is that it does allow us to show some of the interesting things you can do and customize the workflow. There's a lot of other things you can do that we didn't have time to show. But I think it's sort of a decent setup. Now, why Office Live? I think one of the primary things is that, hopefully you're getting from the conference here that Microsoft is investing to win in the software plus services space. And we think Office Live is a great example of this, right? A set of web-based services for small businesses, the ability to integrate for offline support and my client applications for Office, a lot of rich capabilities for online and offline scenarios. And we're really serious about this. We also have, the ability to So if you build, whether it's your business or your solution on top of Office Live, then you basically take advantage of the Microsoft Content Delivery Network and data centers that we're building out for reliability, right? So a lot of small businesses are trusting us to host this and be up, and hopefully you guys will think about that too for the solutions that you build. Also, in terms of customizing the site, I mean, imagine being able to create a solution like a reservation system for a bed and breakfast within a week, within just a few days, and then be able to list that solution on the marketplace and resell it. So there are a lot of other interesting things you can do with it through SharePoint Designer or through just custom code or through configuring. And in the marketplace, you can list both solution offerings and services offerings. So we've got a number of website design development shops that are just going out and helping people customize their sites. And then we've got a number of them that we're mostly doing design development work and are now seeing ways to take some of the work they do and apply it across a lot of different customers. So, we sincerely hope that you'll take a look at Office Live and at least try it out. We've got some really good materials out here on MSDN where you can go out and actually see some short screencasts. We've got several 15, 20-minute screencasts of how to do specific things in Office Live. We've got a lot of really good developer documentation. We've got the source code for that mashup you saw and 3 other mashups, and we're adding more all the time. So you can download the JavaScript libraries that call into the web services within Office Live environment. We're making available the content for the WPF app that Rohit wrote, and we've got a lot of interesting things out there. And if you are interested, seriously interested, come see Rohit or myself afterward, and we'll get you set up with a key to get you into Office Live so you can start with a premium account and explore it. And then also the marketplace. That's the link to the marketplace is right off the Office Live site. You can go in and just take a look. We're relatively early in this marketplace, so it's kind of a good time to get in. And we've got some partners who are getting lots and lots of referrals already through here because now customers are starting to come online and they're getting to the point now where they're starting to use the Office Live site and figure out what else could I be doing for my business, and they're starting to search for solutions in there. So there are a lot of interesting things you can do. Please come up and see us or get a hold of us. Those are our email addresses. We also have here, we'd like to basically turn over and do some questions now. If you've got some deeper questions into it, we can show you stuff or answer them. And we also have Tara Brown from the product team here. So we're well represented. Don't be afraid to ask any questions, and we should be able to answer them for you. So any questions from, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, good question. So if I build an app, how do I deploy it to an Office Live customer is what you're asking, right? So the process today, this is something that we're working, the product team's got a lot of focus on. So it's not perfect, but we have a way today where we have the marketplace where you can go and actually list your solution. And that solution might be an STP file, a SharePoint template file. It might have some associated files with it as well, maybe a client application. But the way the marketplace works is you get to list that and be in our directory. And then we've got some requirements on a standard landing page that we would refer the customers to. And a lot of our partners have told us they want to get those referrals, right? Because they're working on their own SEM or SEO strategy. They want to know where people are coming from. So we refer them directly to your site on this landing page where they can download the app. And we've got some directions, and some of our partners have created instructions. What has to happen today is the customer would then go download. If it's a client app, they would install it. If it's the SharePoint template, they would upload it into their Office Live space and install it like what Rohit showed you. I don't know if you remember that part, but he actually went in and said, hey, I want to create a new app, and I want it based on this template, and then boom, the business application was there for the restaurant manager. So that's kind of the process they would have to go through today. And then we're constantly working on that sort of packaging and deployment strategy as we go. So did that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
How do I charge people using my app?
Yeah.
So one time or can I pay for
Right. So how do you charge people for using the app? Well, right now, that's something that you handle. So when we refer them to your site, and then you actually will do the billing and the charging. So you can handle that any way you want. What we've got is most of our, a lot of our partners are actually handling the transaction themselves. And then so they can sell it to as many customers as they want, but they're actually handling the transactions within the context of their own site.
The hard part is mashup. If I mashup two apps,
Well, the mashups that's an interesting question. You're asking if they're mashing up from different vendors. How do you handle that? Well, I don't really know that Office Live complicates that problem. I think most of the mashup services that we've seen people provide have been to where they have their own API key, right? Like you probably saw with Windows Live, up to 1 million transactions, I think, is still free. I'm not quite sure I understand how.
Well, the trouble is I actually have 3 different vendors, right?
Okay.
Each one charges differently. How do I don't want a customer to see multiple pages.
Yeah.
And I charge them one, maybe I'm charging them one, and I profit sharing with all the other guys. So how do it's almost like specifically not.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't think it makes it more complicated, but we don't handle multi-billing from different. We actually are looking at that. We have a number of partners. What they want to do is they already provide hosting solutions today, maybe hosted Exchange or something like this, and they're looking at saying, wow, if I could provide Office Live and handle all the billing directly for my customer, I could offer an Office Live Premium Plus, right, where I could do, here's my applications as well as what you get with Office Live. And we're working on that. We don't have that billing capability yet today, but that's clearly a scenario that we're targeting. So come up later if you want to. I'd like to hear specifically which mashup services that you're thinking of. Yes?
I'd just like to contribute to that comment. I work for a company called Strike Iron.
Yeah, okay.
We have over 100 commercial web services from multi-vendors that you can add into your applications, and then you get one billing provider. I'd be interested also in trying to figure that out because I'm trying to figure out how to make it work with Office Live as well. So maybe I'll join you up there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Good. So that would be interesting. We could work. It'd be an interesting way to work directly with you, and then you handle the billing to the different mashups. Okay.
And there's one there.
Yeah.
Does the workflow currently support hooking into, I saw you provide the email solutions there as well. So, for example, if you want to prepare a workflow that the support ticket goes on, so when someone sends an email with a specific subject line or something like that, or a specific email address that gets logged into the database or something along those lines, do you have the facilities to do that?
So from what I understand, you're talking about sending an email from within the workflow when something has happened on the data, right?
I think he's talking about the reverse, right? You're saying I want to consume an email that kicks something off.
Right.
Okay.
Does it have events from the mail inbound side as well as to send an email?
Well,
Kara wants to answer that.
we support alerts within the workflows, but in terms of inbound, yeah, I think there's a way to do that. There's a way with one of the data viewer web part to actually consume. Like we have a partner that is providing their stuff through an RSS feed that is then consumed, and then they format the display so that it shows up within the business application in the way that they want. It's not exactly an email, but there's other ways to do that with email alerts. Yeah.
So I take that question one step further. I guess asking, can we email enable the libraries inside of the SharePoint? Similar to what you would get in
Right. Yeah, I actually think that is
That's
not.
possible.
I don't think you can do
That
that.
would be a trigger.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
totally.
Document to a library or email something to a
Yep.
library and then kick off the work.
Right. We have the notion of the document library. Unless Tara can correct me, I don't think we allow you to configure it to receive emails.
Are you asking like if somebody wants to email directly to the library?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that SharePoint provides today, because that's
Right.
why you're asking, right? So right now it's disabled, and it's because we have some issues with dealing with spam. So we know that it's definitely a popular feature. Most people just don't figure out how to deal with spam. Then we call it enable.
That answers your question. I think that's the question he was
So
asking.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
another thing that you could do, though, if you saw the data sharing feature between the public site and the private site, if you had, say, a form, you could, and somebody puts in their email address and it comes in, you could use data sharing, and as it comes in the private site, kick off a workflow.
So like here,
You could do something like that.
Actually,
There's lots of creative things you can do.
That's exactly what Rohit showed with the reservation request.
so you have
right?
this form here, right? The email form, and you get the reservation request list. The data from here goes into that list. So you could have data coming from here, which would trigger something up internally.
And that triggered a workflow, which could do stuff, but yeah. Another question?
Could you give us more details about the business model behind this? This would be very interesting.
Well, so make sure I understand the question. So what is the business model? And when you say sharing customers, I mean, let me just take it through one scenario, and then you tell me if this is answering. First of all, the opportunity clearly is that everyone's trying to figure out how to access the small and medium business marketplace, right? There are 6 million small and medium businesses in the U.S. There are over 40 million worldwide, and half of those businesses don't even have a web presence yet. So everybody's looking for ways to have access to them, and I think Office Live is a great way to do that. Now, so that's the first part of the value proposition. Why would I think about it? Now, in terms of who owns the customer, today they have to have an Office Live subscription through us. As I mentioned, we're working in the future on ways to allow you to build a customer direct and do resell and things like this. We're working on that. We have a number of partners that have produced an enterprise-level solution with Windows SharePoint Service or SharePoint Server, who are looking at what they can do and saying, well, this wouldn't be too hard for me to actually make it work in Office Live, and now I've got an entire new base of customers that I can sell into. So, for example, one of these partners has a solution for designers, for architect design type people who are using AutoCAD and things like that. They have an enterprise server product, but many of these are very small businesses that only have a few people in them, and they're not going to buy an enterprise server, but they participate with larger companies in design specs for large projects. So they're saying, wow, we could now take and make our solution available to these smaller businesses. And without having to do any extra work, basically. And now a smaller version of our product is available through Office Live. Now they own those customers, but the customer has to be an Office Live subscriber, and then they have to pay for this. So that in that case, those partners have to manage those customers separately from the Office Live subscription. And once again, this is part of our path is to make that more seamless. But it's workable today in that sense. Am I answering your question or not? No? Okay. Let me try again.
I think it's a way which has not applied in the future.
Well, the whole small medium application marketplace is not totally figured out yet, right? I mean, there's a lot of vendors who are trying to figure out how that marketplace is going to look and how the monetization is going to work. So the thing that I think is good is that we're in that game, and we're working with a lot of partners and customers right now. And the cool thing is that Tara and her team are they're very open, taking these requirements and quickly turning them around.
And we want feedback like this from everyone here, and that's what is valuable.
Yep. So.
To keep giving that feedback, we have the developer forums, and the product team, including myself and our developers, are on them every day. So, there's lots of different ways you can communicate your ideas back to us or your requirements, things you're missing, and that's the kind of thing we want to hear all the time.
So what else? Any other questions, or are there any details that you want to know about in the demo or other things? Because I think we're running out of time, but I'd love to answer a couple more questions. Yes?
Controls built in, so I built a template that it's not easy for clients just to share them amongst themselves.
No. So the question was, are there any controls built in to protect your IP so clients, if they downloaded your app, they would not be able to share. But what I would say is that most of the partners we're working with, since this is software as a service for the most part, they've instrumented that. So, for example, we have one partner that's created a bunch of really, really cool, I've totally branded the private site, so it looks like and it's for legal matters. And they're able to offer this to their subscribers, and they have JavaScript code that pings to their server with unique IDs for the customers. So they know that's the way they instrument that, and they can tell whether this is a licensed version of their product running on Office Live. So that's what's nice about the online world, is that you can do these things even from a client app like what Rohit showed. It's just that you do have to have a little bit of infrastructure to handle that. We don't actually prevent that right now. Yes?
From a technology standpoint, how is Ajax and Silverlight materializing on this platform?
So the question is, how is Ajax, how does it play with this platform, or how is it materializing? Is that the question? Okay.
How is it going to be fitting in the future?
Sure.
What are the plans there?
So, when you looked at the public-facing site, I can put code in there to do whatever I want, basically. There's that set of site designer and page editor tools that we give, and you saw that we inserted some custom HTML, and another time we inserted some JavaScript, traversed the DOM, and pre-filled that form. You can do all those things on the public site. You can also use your own tool like Dreamweaver, and you treat it like a hosting provider, and you can put pages up there that do pretty much everything. The only limitation is that I can't today make a call from my public page through JavaScript into the private site. You have to use the data sharing controls that we've provided. Now, on the private site, can I do AJAX stuff there? I can do that. We kind of showed that one mashup where I did some interesting things, and I can do the refreshes. So there are our ASP.NET AJAX libraries have evolved, and they're supporting more and more things within SharePoint and within web parts. You can actually do that today within SharePoint. There are a couple of caveats, but I really don't. I think Office Live gives you that ability, doesn't limit you from using AJAX or web tool mashups, and that's what we were hoping to show with some of those examples, is that you can still do that, any of that stuff. In some cases, like the Virtual Earth mashup was cool because what happened there. In fact, I think we have a slide that shows a little more detail on this. That actually did a JavaScript JS include for the Virtual Earth mashup, brought it into the web browser client side, and then we had a set of JavaScript libraries that made calls into the Office Live Web Services to pull the contacts out of the Business Contact Manager and list them on the page. And then when Rohit selected the contacts, it actually plotted them on the Virtual Earth map. So you can do any of the kind of stuff that you normally would do from an AJAX perspective. So I think we're going to see people get more and more creative about the kind of things they put on the site. Did that answer your question, sort of? You're nodding slowly? Okay. What else? What didn't I address about that?
I'm just kind of wondering if there'll be components and drag and drop, build your own site, sex appeal, AJAX sort of like stuff that will be part of the platform.
Yeah. No, sir.
We're always looking at, wanting to make it really cool and being up with the latest technology. And that's the big part of it. Our service team is pretty quick and agile in how frequently we get releases out there. It's just a matter of gathering requirements from the developer community. So again, it comes down to you guys telling us what you want, and that helps us prioritize a lot.
So we've been talking about, and I'm not committing Tara to anything here, but we've been talking about, if you look back at that page editor, the module here, those modules, like for example, we have some pre-built modules there for an HTML module. He used to collect data and display data. Well, we've been talking about interesting things you could put on there, because those tools actually, the site designer and page editor are totally browser-based sort of AJAX type application in the first place, and allows me to do all kinds of customizations to the site. But I can do things already like add in little mashups and my own JavaScript and things like that. In the future, we've talked about a few things, and certainly with Silverlight, we're going to explore things like video and photos and things we can do like that. So I think it's a great point. We've got to, provide even more sex appeal to the cool things I can do. I mean, how cool would that be for a small business to start dragging in really neat little mashups like that and make it very easy to do it? We also are talking to a couple partners that provide tools to do that stuff. So that's another interesting angle to it.
You design each page individually, or have a template?
That,
That's the site designer.
yeah.
You put it on that.
So when he was changing the templates, it actually would apply to every page that's managed. Yeah, same with the colors. You can.
There's something called BYOS in your own site. So if you want to use the client to create a pages, you can go do that.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time today. And we're going to hang out for a bit. So if we didn't answer something and you want to come up here, please do, or get a hold of us with our email. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
For coming.